Exciting news, the new Breitling Avenger 42mm has just been launched, and in this video we're going to be getting hands-on with this watch and reviewing everything that you need to know about this new model. Now, just for the purposes of this video, there has been a Breitling GMT 44mm Avenger launched, but we're not going to be covering that today. We're only going to be doing the new 42mm variants. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And today we're covering the new Breitling 42mm Avenger. There's been 3 new variants released. We've got one black, one green, and one blue. We'll be diving into the detail of these watches. So let's begin at the start, and let's begin with the case diameter, because when it comes to watch purchases, that's normally the first thing we look at. These new variants come in at 42mm. Now, this is the smallest variant within the Breitling Avenger range, because the next up from this is a 43mm. So they've slimmed it down, or kind of minimized it down just that little touch, and that can't be understated, because when it's on the wrist, it does wear a lot more comfortable, especially when you've got wrists like mine coming in at 6.5 inches. I would say 42mm is probably the cusp of just getting a little bit too big for me, so I'm pretty glad they slimmed it down that little touch. The case thickness of this new model comes in roughly, according to our digital calipers, about 12.5 millimeters. So it is relatively thin, especially when we compare this, for an example, to the Omega Aquaterra World Timer, which comes in at about 14.1 mil in thickness. So it is quite nice, it is quite thin, and remember that this does go to 300 meters of water resistance, so it's quite nice to get a diver that comes in a little bit thinner. And Breitling are showing people that it can be done, so why isn't everyone doing it? Both the case and the face of this watch are pretty damn hefty. Now, no links have been taken out of this watch, and it does come in full stainless steel, but let's get this on the scales and show you exactly how much it weighs. This comes in at roughly 185 grams, which is pretty damn heavy. Now, just to give you guys a comparison, I got gifted a Christopher Ward 12. This is the Glacier Blue variant. Pretty damn sexy. And let's get this on the scales just for comparison and tell you how much that weighs. Roughly 137 grams. Now, that goes to show the quality difference. Not saying that Christopher Ward's bad quality, but it's obviously less expensive than this Breitling. And it obviously goes to show the components within this Breitling are probably a little bit more premium. When we get into the detail of this watch and look at the bracelet, we can see that it has a pretty hefty, substantial bracelet with those iconic Breitling slants in there. Now, I'm not going to say that I like something if I don't. I'm not as keen on the Breitling slants personally. I would rather a rubber strap or a NATO, but that's kind of just my preference. Now, the strap does have that slight taper in it, which is pretty nice. It remains quite bulky, though. It is quite masculine. Now, it has a deployment clasp at the back here with macro extensions at the bottom, which is pretty great. Now, the reason that macro extensions are great, other than wearing a wetsuit and diving in this watch, is that some people, or not some people, all people shrink and expand daily. And they shrink and expand based on the weather, based on whether they're warm or, like in Scotland today, they're freezing. The bezel on this watch is unidirectional and in stainless steel, and it has quite good notches to it. It has a quite good design to it, but what I love more than that is this. That is just, I would honestly put that up there with a Rolex Submariner's clicks on the bezel, or a Tudor Blancpain. They kind of seem to nail it, and Breitling have certainly nailed it. Now, another detail that I love about stainless steel bezels is that they're kind of a dying breed. A lot of people discontinued stainless steel bracelets and replaced them with ceramic. Now, I kind of understand the pros and cons of both. Ceramic technically won't scratch as much as stainless steel, but there's something rustic, there's something iconic, and there's something with longevity that comes with stainless steel. I mean, you don't see many vintage watches with ceramic. It just doesn't happen. Now, being a fully functional diver, this watch does have that dot of Lume on the bezel, and it also has superluminova within the face. So we'll take a look at that now, but if you want to see a close-up of that, make sure you head to Chisholm Hunter's website, where we're now official stockists of Breitling watches. I've linked that in the description below for you. But let's take a look at what we can see from the Lume. As you can see here, the Lume is extremely bright green. Now, one thing that I do love about this watch is that sometimes the dot upon the bezel can be an afterthought to brands. It can be pretty small, pretty dainty, but this one isn't. It's pretty bold, it's pretty bright, and it's definitely been a primary concern within their mind, which is nice. Diving into the face of this model momentarily, because we totally forgot about the crown. Now, the crown actually is quite well notched. It remains quite grippy without being too sharp. Sometimes you can get crowns that have notches that are just a little bit too much, and they kind of cut up your hand when you try and grab them. So this is quite nice. It's kind of like, when you look at it as well, the crown itself, it looks kind of like a tire tread, like the indentations in a tire. I'm not sure if this is deliberate because it's military inspired or not, but it's quite a cool detail regardless. Now, the crown guards are a little bit more curved, and they obviously protect that crown, giving this water resistance of 300 meters. However, if you look at the Longines Hydro Conquest, for an example, the crown is a lot more angular and a lot more sharp. Now, stylized-wise, this is quite a nice style, so to speak, but functionally-wise, it's maybe not as good. Reason being is when you bend your wrist, you don't want a watch to dig into your wrist and cause pain. You don't want it to cause discomfort, whereas this won't cause that discomfort. I like both of them for different reasons. This is more functional, whereas the sharper, for example, Longines Hydro Conquest, is maybe a little bit more stylized. There are 3 variants when it comes to these new models. There is a dark green, kind of a military green, which is actually the inspiration for this collection, and the colors in this collection are military inspired. So you have this dark green, you also have a kind of lighter blue, which is a really nice shade of blue. It's actually kind of a different shade of blue to what I've seen before, and you also have a black. Now, all of these watches have a red tip to the second hand, and also the word Avenger in red above the 6 o'clock mark. For anyone that knows me, they'll know that I love touches of color. I love linings, I love detail, I love things that can make a watch pop out without overcomplicating it. And this is kind of what this red touch adds to me. Now, I would say that the black plays against the red better than the green does. However, I know that green's a really popular color and people will like green. I suppose that's just kind of your choice. Now, the dial itself is actually kind of a matte texture, so it doesn't reflect too much in terms of light. The hands and the indices of this watch come in silver, and they're highly, highly reflective against that dark dial. Now, the good thing about having dark dials like the blue, black, and the green here, the military-inspired colors, is that silver stands out so much more against it because it's a lot brighter, a lot more reflective. When you get overly bright dials, for example, my Christopher Ward, I'm not afraid to say it, it can probably get harder to read because the dial kind of blends in with the hands. It doesn't happen here, which is great. It remains functional and military inspired, which is amazing. Now, it does have a date window at the 3 o'clock mark. You guys know me. I would probably switch that over to a 6 o'clock date window. Just for symmetry, it just fits a lot better in my opinion. However, one thing that I do like about the date window is the little box that is around it. They have a little white box around it, a little lining of detail that makes it look pretty damn cool. Now, at the 12, 15, 30, and 45 mark, above the hour marks, you have a tiny little red arrow on the kind of outer disc inlay with the seconds markers on it. Really nerdy detail again, but I love that color against the black. It just adds so much contrast. When we flip this watch round and try to look at the movement, we can't because it has a closed case back, which a lot of diving watches that goes to 300 meters do, but I would prefer it with an open case back. And before we get onto the movement, it's time for 3 pros and 3 changes to these watches. Let's begin with the changes that I would make, the 3 changes that I would make, and please let me know in the comments if you agree with me. If you don't agree with me, then we can argue in the comments. If you do agree with me, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. So the first change that I would make is move that 3 o'clock date window to 6 o'clock. Instantly, you're adding more symmetry there, and I do believe that that would just look a little bit, to me, more aesthetically appealing. Secondly, let's open up that case back and show that beautiful movement. I mean, we'll go on to the movement in a second, but it is quite damn decent. It's pretty damn good. And thirdly, why don't we have a Tiffany blue color? Why don't we have something brighter? I understand that they're military inspired, but this is fun. This is just a bit of fun. I don't know. Bring out a Tiffany blue or bring out something bold. You're Breitling are great at bringing out bold colors like yellow, maybe a purple. And we get to the 3 pros of this watch, which, by the way, the pros definitely outweigh the cons of this watch. So we have a beautiful stainless steel bezel with that little pop It's just honestly unbelievable. Now, stainless steel bezels are a dying breed, and I absolutely love them, so kudos to Breitling for doing that. Second pro of this watch is the splashes of color and the lining of colors that they've used. That little red fleck it just adds so damn much to the style of this watch. And the next positive is the size of it. And I know this seems very, very basic, but everything in the industry is getting smaller. I'm definitely a pretty skinny guy, so I just prefer smaller watches. Now, there's definitely still a space for the more bulky, broad models. However, I like the fact it's coming down in size. The movement in this watch is the Breitling Caliber 17. It comes in at 25.6 millimeters in diameter, 4.6 millimeters in thickness, has 25 joules, beats at 28,800 BPH, and also has roughly a 38-hour power reserve. And that is everything you need to know about the new Breitling Avenger 42mm. Now, we will be doing a review of the GMT model, and we will be doing the new chrono models that came out, so stay tuned for that if you want to see them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed, or follow our Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches, where we post mainly watches. I'll see you next time.